Narcissistic abuse, what it really does to you. How to recognize it, what it leaves behind, and how to actually heal. Content note: this video discusses psychological abuse and trauma. If you or someone you know is experiencing abuse, the domestic violence hotline is available 24/7 at 1-800-799-7233. Have you ever been in a relationship, romantic, family, friendship, work, where you started questioning your own sanity? Where you'd walk away from a conversation genuinely unsure whether what just happened was real, or whether you were somehow the problem? That experience has a name, and it's more common than most people realize. Today we're talking about narcissistic abuse, what it actually is, what it does to you long after it ends, how to spot it in your own life or someone else's, and what recovery actually looks like. This is a topic that deserves a lot more attention than it gets.
Because unlike a bruise or a broken bone, this kind of damage is invisible.
And that invisibility is part of what makes it so hard to escape. What is narcissistic abuse? Narcissistic abuse is a pattern of emotional and psychological mistreatment that typically comes from someone with narcissistic personality disorder, or someone who has those traits without a formal diagnosis. What does it look like in practice? Manipulation. Gaslighting. That's when someone denies your reality, makes you question your own memory, tells you you're being too sensitive or making things up. Shaming. Constant invalidation. A relationship where your worth is always conditional on how well you serve the other person's needs. It can happen in any kind of close relationship. A romantic partner, a parent, a close friend, a manager at work. The setting changes, but the pattern is remarkably consistent. Research suggests that close to half of people have experienced psychological or emotional abuse from a romantic partner at some point. This isn't rare. But because it leaves no visible marks, it often goes unnamed, even by the people living through it. That's precisely why awareness matters so much. Many survivors spend years doubting their own experiences because there's no physical evidence. They think, maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe it's my fault. That self-doubt is not a coincidence. It's a result of the abuse itself. What does it leave behind? Let's talk about the aftermath. Because even after someone gets out of a narcissistically abusive relationship, the effects don't just disappear. They can linger for months, sometimes years, and they show up in ways people don't always connect back to what they experienced. Constant anxiety and hypervigilance. When you've spent a significant amount of time monitoring someone else's moods, anticipating their reactions, trying to stay one step ahead of their anger or disappointment, your nervous system learns to stay on high alert. That doesn't switch off the moment the relationship ends. Survivors often find themselves anxious in completely safe situations, flinching at things that remind them of the abuser, waiting for something to go wrong even when nothing is. Symptoms that look a lot like PTSD. Living inside prolonged psychological abuse can produce trauma symptoms, flashbacks, panic responses, sleep disturbances, sudden mood shifts. The brain has learned to treat certain cues as threats, and it keeps doing that even in safe environments. This is often referred to as complex PTSD, and it's a serious and legitimate response to what survivors have been through. Depression and a collapsed sense of self-worth. Being told, repeatedly in 100 different ways, that you are inadequate, unreasonable, too much, not enough. This erodes something fundamental. Survivors often come out of these relationships with a deeply damaged sense of who they are and what they deserve. They may feel hopeless, flat, unable to feel joy in things that used to matter. Gaslighting is particularly damaging here. When someone consistently tells you that your perception of reality is wrong, you're remembering it wrong, you're being dramatic, you're making it up, you eventually start to believe them. You stop trusting your own mind. Physical symptoms. This one surprises people, but prolonged psychological stress has real physical consequences. Many survivors report chronic headaches, digestive problems, persistent fatigue, sleep disruption. The body has been running on stress hormones for a long time, and it takes time to regulate back to baseline. Difficulty making decisions. After months or years of having your judgment constantly questioned and overridden, even small decisions can feel paralyzing. What do I want for dinner? Should I take this job? Can I trust this person? The internal compass that most people rely on has been so thoroughly undermined that it's hard to use it anymore. Trouble trusting yourself and others. This is perhaps the most lasting effect. When someone you were close to betrayed and manipulated you, the instinct is to stop letting people in. But equally significant is the loss of self-trust. That inner voice that says, "Something feels off here," or "I know what I saw." Gaslighting targets that voice directly. Rebuilding it takes real work. How do you recognize it? Because narcissistic abuse operates through psychology rather than physical force, it can be incredibly hard to identify, especially from the inside. If you're worried about someone you care about, watch for shifts in their behavior over time.
Are they becoming more people-pleasing?
Less willing to express an opinion? Have they withdrawn from friends or activities they used to love? Do they apologize constantly, take the blame for things that clearly aren't their fault? Do they make excuses for their partner or minimize things that concern you? And watch what you witness between them. Does their partner belittle them, even subtly, even as a joke? Does their partner control their time, their money, who they can see? Does their partner deny things that you yourself witnessed, leaving your loved one looking confused or unstable? If you're questioning your own situation, trust that question. The fact that you're asking it matters. Some signs to look for. Do you feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells? Do you regularly doubt your own memory of events? Do you feel responsible for your partner's emotions, like it's your job to manage their moods? Have you lost touch with friends or family?
Do you feel like you've gradually lost track of who you are outside this relationship?
One of the most consistent patterns in narcissistic abuse is the cycle of idealization and devaluation. Being treated as wonderful and irreplaceable one moment, then criticized, rejected, or ignored the next. If this rhythm feels familiar, pay attention to it. What does healing actually look like? Recovery is possible. That's not a platitude. It's something survivors demonstrate every day. But it takes time, it takes support, and it often looks different from what people expect. Professional support. Working with a therapist who understands trauma and abuse can be genuinely transformative. Not because they tell you what to do, but because they provide a space where your experiences are taken seriously, possibly for the first time in a long time. A good therapist can help you make sense of what happened, work through the traumatic memories, rebuild your self-esteem and your trust in your own judgment, develop healthier boundaries, and address the anxiety or depression that often follows. For many people, online therapy is a particularly good fit. You can access support from wherever you feel safe, without the added stress of logistics or visibility. Connection with others who understand. Support groups, in person or online, can offer something therapy alone can't always provide. The experience of being truly understood by someone who has lived through something similar. That kind of recognition can be incredibly powerful, especially after years of being told your experiences weren't real or didn't matter. Learning to validate yourself. After narcissistic abuse, one of the most important things to rebuild is the capacity to trust your own feelings. You may have been taught, explicitly or implicitly, that your emotions are unreasonable, excessive, or inconvenient. Unlearning that takes deliberate practice. Something as simple as journaling, writing down what you experienced and what you felt about it, can help you reconnect with your own perspective and start rebuilding confidence in your own perceptions. Education. Understanding what happened to you is genuinely empowering. When you can name the tactics that were used, gaslighting, love bombing, devaluation, triangulation, they lose some of their power. You realize the confusion you felt wasn't a sign of weakness or stupidity. It was a predictable response to a calculated pattern. That knowledge also helps you recognize warning signs going forward and to support others who may be going through something similar. Reclaiming your life. Narcissistic abuse often involves the abuser taking control of your choices, your appearance, your interests, your friendships, your time. Part of recovery is reclaiming those things, picking up the hobbies you dropped, rebuilding the relationships that were pushed aside, making decisions, even small ones, based on what you actually want, not on what might avoid conflict. This sounds simple. After a long period of abuse, it can feel revolutionary. June 1st, World Narcissistic Abuse Awareness Day. Every year on June 1st, the world marks World Narcissistic Abuse Awareness Day. Established in 2016 by psychotherapist Bree Bonche specifically because so many survivors couldn't find language for what they'd experienced. The day serves a few purposes. For survivors, it's validation, a public acknowledgement that what you went through was real and that it matters. For everyone else, it's an opportunity to learn the signs, to have the conversation, and to show up better for people in their lives who might be struggling. You don't need to wait for June 1st to do any of that. But if you're looking for a reason to share this video, to check in on someone, or to start a conversation you've been putting off, there it is. Final thoughts. Narcissistic abuse is real. Its effects are real. And they don't disappear on their own just because the relationship ended. But healing is also real. With the right support, a good therapist, honest conversations, community, and time, survivors do rebuild. They learn to trust themselves again. They build relationships that feel safe. They find their way back to themselves. If anything in this video resonated with you, if you recognized your own story or someone else's, please take that seriously. You're not being too sensitive. You're not making it up. And you don't have to figure it out alone. Reaching out for help is not weakness. It's the first step toward getting your life back. If you're in immediate need of support, the Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 1-800-799-7233. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you in the next one.